Do you ever just get an itch to get rid of everything in your home? Yeah, that's me right now. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, the weather's been getting really nice. I felt a breeze the other day that really restored my will to live. And whenever the seasons start to change, I just get an urge to refresh my whole apartment. I've been stacking up books that I want to unhaul for at least a year on the floor by my desk. And the decluttering itch has gotten to a point where if I don't bring these books to the used bookstore in the next week, I'm gonna throw them out the window instead. And for anyone who doesn't get sarcasm and hyperboles, of course I will not actually be doing that. I will be taking them to the used bookstore, or I will be donating them or something like that. I want these books out of my sight. There's way too many of them. I don't know how many, but I'll pop the number up so you can see how many in total. But there's way too many of them and I want them out. I did not write down any notes for any of these books, so let's hope that my thoughts are not a total mess, and let's just get into it. So first, we've got the second book in the Meg series by Steve Alton. I actually still have the first book in the series somewhere in the black portion of my shelves, and I will be keeping that because I read that series way back when I was a kid and I just have so much nostalgia for it. It's a series about scientists like discovering a megalodon still existing in the ocean, and then, you know, it's one of those series, think Jurassic Park but for sharks in the water, of the prehistoric shark like killing a bunch of people and them chasing it down and trying to capture it and all of that kind of stuff, which is a fun premise for like one book. Is this even the second book? I think this is the third one. I think I never got the second one. I just skipped to the third for some reason. Because back in the day, I was very bad about checking which book in a series I was picking up. I don't know. But the point is, great for one book. And then every book after that feels more like a cash grab and they're trying to capitalize on the popularity of the first one. Next, we've got Courting Trouble, some mass market paperback, like legal suspense book. I don't really remember. Yeah, it's some rookie lawyer who one morning wakes up to headlines proclaiming that she's been murdered, and enjoyable to read. Like, this is definitely the kind of book that I would enjoy like picking up in an airport, despite the high costs of airport books, and then reading it on the plane, and then I never need to read it again after that. I don't have a problem with it. It's just not worth the space it takes up on my shelves. Next, we've got Go Ask Alice, which was supposedly marketed back in the day as an anonymous diary of a teen drug addict. I tried rereading this in the past couple of years because I've been going through all of my shelves and rereading the books that I don't really remember to see if I still like them or not. And I knew in my heart and soul that I wasn't going to like it. But I tried giving it a shot anyway. And as I was reading through the entries, I was like, something about this is sus. So I looked up the Wikipedia entry about it, and there's like a whole controversy about how this isn't actually anonymous, and like people know who actually wrote it, and it was some person with like some, I don't know, like conservative religious motives about fear tactics, basically, of trying to get teenagers afraid of not just drugs, but also like being gay and having sex before marriage and all that kind of stuff. Not great. Younger me, I guess, didn't catch that, but me as an adult, I'm like, this entire book is just suspicious. All right, this one is Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. It's a short little book, takes place in World War II in Denmark. Yeah, in Copenhagen. Honestly, I think it's like a fairly good book for kids. It is a very young read. I think the main character in this book is maybe 10 to 12 or something like that. She's a kid. The writing style is definitely meant for children, for like middle grade or younger, probably like elementary school, I think, later elementary school. Good for kids, not so much for me, and it doesn't have any nostalgia for me to want to keep it regardless. Next, we've got She Lies in Wait, which is marketed as a mystery thriller. I don't think it's a mystery thriller, but basically years ago, a whole group of teenagers went camping, and then when they woke up the next morning, the youngest girl in the group was missing. And then this book follows them 20 or something years later when her body has finally been found and they're trying to figure out, you know, who killed her. I didn't really like this. I think I gave it like 3 stars or something like that. There wasn't a problem with it, honestly. Well, no, okay, there was maybe a problem. Is there anything on this that actually markets it as a thriller? Okay, this says it's chilling suspense tale, conveys both the thrills and the dangers. Okay, I think on like Goodreads or something like that is marked as a thriller, and so I went into this expecting a thriller, and the reason I didn't like it very much is because I was waiting to be thrilled for all 300, 400 pages of this, and I was not thrilled. This one's on me because I bought this at one of the Strand bookstores, I think, in New York. It was a blind book, so it was wrapped up, and the only thing that was on the wrapping said slow burn but for murder. And you know what? That description is exactly what it was. It was a slow burn, and if I'm reading a thriller, I don't really want a slow burn. That one's on me. I'll admit, I'll take culpability for that one. Next, we've got Splintered by A.G. Howard. This is a book that I read so long ago, I think in like high school or something. And even in high school, I don't think I really liked it that much. But the reason that I kept it is because I love the cover so much. I love the vibrancy of it. I love the saturation of the colors. I think it's a beautiful cover, and I've never been able to let it go because I love looking at the cover so much. And finally, I have grown and developed as a person enough that I can say that's not a good enough reason, because it's really not that good. This is kind of like an Alice in Wonderland retelling, or less so a retelling, or more like a story following one of Alice's many descendants. And I feel like maybe the entire series as a whole has potential, but what I can't get past is the fact that this book really has the like 2012, 2013 Tumblr, fanfiction.net descriptions of clothing, you know? It's that vibe through the whole book. And so while I think maybe the whole series would have potential, I, as like a 27, 28-year-old woman, depending on when you're watching this and when I post it, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. This one might piss some people off. I don't know. Dune by Frank Herbert. This is another book that I have kept for longer than I should have kept, simply because I love the cover. The cover design, gorgeous. I love this. I wish I had loved the book so much more so that I could keep this cover on my shelves. Unfortunately, I didn't. This book has so much value to it that you miss out on if you just watch the movie, so I appreciated the experience of it. I'm glad that I read it. However, while there were some good philosophical discussions here, and there was a lot of musings and interests in, you know, the character development and some of the events happening, it was too long. I enjoyed it for the first third of the book, and then somewhere around part 2 or part 3, I don't remember how this book is broken up, I started asking myself, like, why is this still going? Why do they need so many pages to get through the things that they're getting through? And by the time I finished it, I was like, I can't go on to the rest of the series. I do not care enough to slog through another, I don't even know how many pages. This is nearly 700 pages. It doesn't need to be. And while we're going through male authors that people love, we also have Dead-Eye Dick by Kurt Vonnegut. Also a book that I was rereading to see if it was worth keeping on my shelves, and obviously by its inclusion, you can see that it was not. I don't remember what I rated it the first time that I read it. It was probably like 3 stars. I didn't even finish it this time. I don't know how far I got into it. I want to say I maybe got somewhere between 50 and 100 pages into it. The writing style is a little difficult to get into, but I'm used to working with very different writing styles. I'm used to getting into the groove of it, even if it's not my favorite writing style. I'm used to like appreciating the craft, you know? So it's not the writing style that I have a problem with. The characters are super dislikable, and I've loved a lot of books with dislikable characters, so it's not that either. But here's my thing. If your characters are gonna be dislikable, they cannot be boring on top of that, okay? And I found this so boring. And maybe I didn't get far enough into it. And if you think that and you want to tell me that I'm dumb for getting rid of it, go ahead. I don't care. Life is too short. I have a few other Kurt Vonnegut books on my shelves, mind you. I have Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle. And I'm going to reread both of those two as well to see if they're worth keeping on my shelves. For right now, they're staying because I didn't want to get to another Kurt Vonnegut book for a little bit. And another author that people love. We've got 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Oh, it's falling out of the sleeve. Okay. I'm not going to hold this up. But you can see, if you can see the post-it note, you'll see how far I got into this. Let me put this down before I break my wrist or I break the book. Again, another book that I tried rereading and I couldn't make it through. The first time that I read this book, I apparently gave it 4 stars. The person who read it and gave it 4 stars is a better person than I, okay? She was able to finish it, and I guess the journey was worth it for her. For me, it is not. I got 150 pages into that book, and I was like, I'm not wasting my time with this anymore. If you're gonna have a book as thick as that book is, every page has to compel me to keep going. And of the 150 pages that I read or something like that, I feel like 15 of them were worth it. And also, while we're at it, there were some weird lines in the book. Like, I understand that if you're writing a period piece, you're gonna have some comments that just don't fly in today's age, but every time I see a guy writing mentions of like the R slur or a magazine cover with the text, and I quote, subhuman Asian gent, and headlines like Jap sex slaves of the Pacific, well, I start getting a little suspicious, you know? I start getting suspicious about whether or not that was actually necessary to set the scene for us. Like, was that actually for the sake of setting the time period? Because I'm sure that there were other period typical headlines that would have aged better than that. I don't know that that was necessary. Okay, and continuing the trend of potentially pissing people off, I have the entire box set of The Lord of the Rings. Okay, so we've got The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. I love these covers. I think they're gorgeous. They have the little colored circle on the front. I think they're so pretty. Obviously, they're not bad books. I do not have such a controversial opinion that I would sit here and tell you that The Lord of the Rings sucks. It doesn't. It's a good trilogy for its genre. I have so much respect for what it did for fantasy novels. The reality is that it's just not really for me. I think I'm just not very much a high fantasy quest kind of person. A lot of the books is, you know, them journeying from one place to another. Like, I could respect the craft that goes into it. I can respect that they are objectively good books, but for me, it's just not really my taste. I've seen the movies. I think I very much preferred watching the movies. And so if I wanted to engage in the Lord of the Rings story, I think I would just watch the movies instead. This is better off going to a used bookstore or a library or something like that, where another reader can be introduced to the world of Tolkien. In the same vein, The Hobbit does not need to stay with me either. I liked The Hobbit more than I liked the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I thought it was easier to get through. I thought it was more entertaining to get through. Easy, fun read, you know? Still not very much to my taste. You know, it's not the typical kind of book that I think I would reach to. And for that reason, I'm going to get rid of it because I just don't think it's a book that I'm going to reread very often. And if like years down the line, I decide that I do want to reread The Hobbit, then I can just get it from my library or I can buy another copy if I really want to. I also just don't like this cover. I just know that there are much prettier editions of The Hobbit. Next, we've got a couple of mangas. We've got volume 1 and 2 of Ranma 1.5. I used to read a whole bunch of manga, and Ranma 1.5 is one of the mangas that I read, and I kept it for the ages because I remember enjoying it when I was a kid. It's about some guy who's like cursed to turn into a girl when he's hit with like, I don't know, cold water, and then he turns back into a boy if he's hit with hot water, or vice versa. And then there's also some kind of arranged marriage happening. But when I reread it, it just didn't hold my interest as much. It's not a story that held up for me. Next, Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kazin. Another reread, but you know what? I don't remember what rating I gave it in the first place, and I don't remember what rating I gave it now. It's a short book, autobiographical, I think, about the time that the author spent in a psychiatric ward in 1967. I don't remember anything about it, and I'm also not really going to criticize someone's autobiographical experience either, so it's just, I didn't connect with it. All right, and next we've got a couple of books from my time in college. For anyone who doesn't know, I majored in journalism, so there was a bunch of writing classes and stuff involved. The first book I've got is Writing Tools, 50 Essential Strategies for Every Writer by Roy Peter Clark. Honestly, if you're learning how to write better, this is a good book. The reason I've kept this for so long when I've gotten rid of most of the educational texts that I read during my time at school is because I remember it actually giving me some good pointers and perhaps put into words and clarified things that I maybe instinctually knew, but hadn't put words to because I hadn't been formally educated to think in this way. It's not groundbreaking, I don't think. Like if you're an extremely experienced author, like you've written a whole book, you've published a whole book, I don't think this is really going to give you much. But for somebody who's maybe writing their first book ever, or they're aspiring to do that, this could maybe give you some tips. And then the next one is When Words Collide, described as a media writer's guide to grammar and style. It's just got a bunch of like grammatical rules and stuff like that, which it was extremely helpful back in the day when I was in class and I got docked points for every grammatical error that I made. The Lux by Anna Godberson. This is a YA 19th century Manhattan socialite romance mystery kind of book, something like that. I don't know. I think this book and this series would be totally entertaining for its age demographic, which I would say is maybe like young teens. Older teens, like 17, 18, I think even at that point, I think you maybe would age out of this and it would be not quite as fun. But for the younger age demographic, I think this would be totally fun. You know, it's a socialite scene. There's catty infighting. There's arranged marriage going on, a little bit of a romance. This is one of those books where I didn't feel compelled to keep reading, but I kind of wanted to know what would happen. So I read the Wikipedia summary instead of the whole series. That was good enough for me. Next, we've got Serena by Ron Rash. This is set in 1930s North Carolina, when I think that portion of the country was really just being developed and industrialized. Is it industrialized? I think the business that's operating in the center of the story is like lumber and stuff like that. Brain development? I don't know where that's coming from. This is not a bad book, at least not from what I remember. This is just another book that isn't quite for me. But if you like gothic stories, this might be for you. I'm not a big fan of the gothic style because it just feels a little too slow and dry for my taste. Serena, our titular character over here, I remember her being a ruthless, powerful woman. And that was the draw for me when I first read the book. And that was the draw for me keeping this book until I gave it another chance and I reread it and I decided if I wanted to keep it. I think a lot of people are going to love that. If you're interested in gothic tales, if you're interested in like kind of historic America and like environmental themes, because I think this also, yeah, it says it's against the backdrop of America's burgeoning environmental movement. This might be for you. It just wasn't for me. Next, we've got The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. This was a disappointment. I was so excited to read this book when I first read it because I had heard people hyping it up and I always saw it on the bookstore bookstores, and I think it's so beautiful, the series, especially like stacked next to each other. And so I was really excited to read it. I had really high hopes for it, and it just kind of fell flat. The premise for this book is that our main character, Todd, lives in a town where everyone can hear everyone else's thoughts. And there's like a conspiracy going on that Todd is discovering, and he has to run for his life, basically. I was really interested in the premise. It turned out to be written much younger than I thought it would. I think Todd is just turning 13 or 14. The writing style, it just didn't have the depth and emotional impact that I was hoping it would have. Next we've got It's Kind of a Funny Story. It's another psych ward book. There was a time when I was like in middle school or something where I thought I was going to major in psychology, but I tried rereading it, and A Tale as Old as Time, I didn't finish it. It wasn't for me. I didn't really like the writing style of it. I think I didn't like being in our main character's head. Next we've got An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I don't remember the premise of this, and the description on the back feels long in small text, so I don't really want to read it and synthesize it. I am very sorry. I remember really liking the OCD representation in this book. I think it was this book. Yeah, I think it's this book from the Green brothers that has OCD representation. I could be very wrong about that. I hope I'm not. I really like the representation. I thought I really learned something of the experience, and I thought it was well written. My issue with it is just that it felt like it was written for a much younger age demographic than I am, and so I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped to. Sorry, apparently the main character is 23, and just based on my memory, I would have guessed that she was at most 15. Did I actually read this? I had to have. Did I read this? What is going on? Oh my god, I'm thinking about the wrong book. Dude, I just gave you my thoughts on Turtles All the Way Down, didn't I? In light of that, I don't remember anything about this book, but clearly I didn't like it enough to keep it. This is what happens when I don't write notes for a video. All right, anyway, we're moving on. The next series of books that I have is a trilogy by Blanka Lipinska. I've got 365 days, the next 365 days, and then this day. I gotta be honest, I didn't even really read past the first 10 pages or something like that. This is like a dark romance trilogy of some girl who gets kidnapped by like a mafia boss or some shit like that. This series was gifted to me, and by any chance the person who gifted it to me sees this video, one, I'm so sorry. Second, don't feel bad about the fact that you gifted this to me and I didn't like it. I don't really care about that. I enjoy getting books as gifts because one way or another it's an experience. It might be an experience I hate, it might be an experience that I love. I just appreciate experiencing different things. Unfortunately, this was just not an experience for me. I made it 10 pages through, and then I was like, yeah, this ain't it, because it's a super explicit, spicy series. So if you like that kind of premise, like girl gets kidnapped by a mafia boss and they make a deal where she has to stay with him for 365 days while he tries to make her fall in love with him. And if you like spicy scenes or whatever, I mean, give it a shot if you like. I just find really spicy scenes written in romance books to be cringy. Next, we've got Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson, which I'm so sad to see on this list. The first Tiffany D. Jackson book I ever read was Grown, and I love that book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so well written. It, like, the emotional impact of that book while I was reading it, crazy. So I was hoping for a similar emotional impact from the other books that I read by her. Allegedly, it follows this Black teen girl who's in like a group home after she's been released from jail because she was accused of murdering a white baby when she was like 9 years old. I'm glad that I read this book. I'm glad that I experienced it and I got the story. I think the depiction of a narcissistic mother was well written, and it was interesting to see our main character, you know, navigate that and how she emotionally dealt with that. I didn't even realize. It's signed, not to me, mind you, I got this book used. It's signed to Riley. At the same time, our main character is also pregnant, so she's dealing with that. She is now willing to talk about the events that happened when she was 9 years old because she's trying to make sure that her unborn child, when they're born, isn't taken away from her. It's not one that's gonna stick with me. Okay, next we've got Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is a graphic novel memoir of the author's childhood growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. I think I gave this 4 stars, and I actually do recommend reading it. I think it was interesting to read through. I think it was a good graphic novel. Here's the art style if that's a thing that you like to see before getting your graphic novels. I absolutely think this is worth reading. However, it is not the kind of graphic novel that I'm going to reach for again and again, so it's really not the kind that I would want to keep on my shelves for long term. I think it would be better in the hands of somebody else, you know, so that more people read it. Next, we've got Black and Blue. This is a story. When did I start giving summaries? I definitely was not giving summaries at the beginning of this video, and and somehow I've ended up doing that. This is about a woman with a child in an abusive relationship and her journey through navigating that abusive relationship and eventually leaving and how she does that. Another book where I think it's interesting to read once, but I'm never going to want to pick it up again. All right, and now we've got a weird miscellaneous series of books. First, we've got a couple of cookbooks. We've got Estefan Kitchen. This is a cookbook from Emilio Estefan and Gloria Estefan. This is signed even. Someone's going to love having this, I'm sure. Unfortunately, that's not going to be me because I don't like cooking in general. And I'm afraid to say that I am, in fact, a horrible Cuban American, and the fact that I also don't really like a bunch of Cuban food. So these recipes are kind of wasted on me. Maybe I should see if my mom wants this. Because the thing is also that if I'm gonna use a recipe to cook, I usually use like an online recipe or something like that. I also have Eva Longoria's cookbook also signed. These books were gifts from somebody who has like connections to Univision. So they were able to get like a bunch of miscellaneous books signed by random people, and she thought I would enjoy having them. And I really appreciate it as a gift. But again, it's not really something that I'm going to use. And then we have a couple of post-secret compilation books. So we have Post Secret, and we also have a Lifetime of Secrets. When I was like in middle school, I think I was like obsessed with Post Secret, which if you don't know about, it's like this project that was started by this guy, Frank Warren, where he would ask people to send in a postcard anonymously with their secrets. And he collected all of them and he put it on his blog. And then eventually, after he had like a bunch, he made a series of books. And I'm pretty sure the project is still running today. I think he still updates his blog today with secrets all the time. I was obsessed with reading all of the secrets. I don't know. I love letters, honestly. And I thought Post Secret was just such an interesting look into humanity on so many different topics, because these postcards cover so many things from like religion to sexuality to crimes to marriage. And like some of the secrets are really silly and some of them are wholesome and heartfelt and some of them are so sad and depressing. But I was obsessed with the project, and so I got a couple of the books when I was younger, and now I'm less so obsessed. And I've also now moved through several apartments. I don't want to carry them to the next apartment. They're kind of heavy. All right, and to wrap it all up, I've got just a few children's books. We got Vámonos pa Venezuela, cute little children's book in Spanish. I don't know if I'm going to give this to a used bookstore or library. If anything, I'll probably send it to my brother so that my niece can read this. And then we've got Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Satcher. When I was a kid, it was a silly, goofy, fun time, but it isn't one of the childhood series that I feel such an emotional connection to that I just feel like I have to keep. My collection of Goosebumps books, I've kept that. My collection of G.D.B. Jones books, I've kept that. This, however, was not one of my favorites, so I only have the one, so I don't think it's worth keeping. And then the final thing I've got is this children's book, Our 50 States, A Family Adventure Across America. There's not really a story. Each page is just like an information page on the states with fun facts and stuff like that. Beautifully illustrated, in my opinion. So this, for example, is the Texas page. Again, beautifully illustrated. I think it has a lot of fun facts. If you want your kids to learn the 50 states, this is a great book to do so. This is not the reason why I kept the book, however. I kept the book for like a very specific reason. The mic is not in a good position for you to pick this up, so I'm very sorry, but I need two hands. It has a pull-out mat. Yeah, that's why I've kept it for so long. That's a stupid reason. Some kid out there would love to have this. I don't know why I'm keeping it just for that. All right, so I don't know how many books that was, but it's enough books that it's creating a mess in front of me and creating a maze that I don't know how I'm going to get out of. I just can't wait to get all of these books out of my house so that I can start afresh with a new pile of books that I want to unhaul. And that's it for today's video. If you want to give me your 2 cents on the books that I'm getting rid of, if you want to yell at me for getting rid of like Lord of the Rings, feel free to do so. It's not going to change my mind. Honestly, by the time this is posted, they're probably gone. But I'm still happy to listen to your opinions in the comments if you'd like to. I will see you in the next one.